All right, well, welcome to what is quickly about to become one of the last capital connection updates that we have. We are wrapping this session up quickly. I know it probably doesn't feel like it's been a quick session to you, Bridger, who's been in the trenches during this whole time, but we are nearing the end. I'm Todd O'Hare. Bridger Mahlum's our Director of Government Affairs and has led the Chamber through an incredibly successful legislative session. Just as a disclaimer, we record the first part of this session where Bridger and I have the dialogue, and then we stop the recording and open it up to any questions, comments, or thoughts that you might have. So with that, Bridger, what are we, 1 week left? Is that the rumor that you're hearing?
That's the rumor. And that's, I mean, so many things about a legislative session are based on rumors and validity of your sources, but it really is becoming, let's take some bets on when this thing's going to wrap up. And I think it's pretty much conventional wisdom at this point that they're not going to use all 90 days. I think, and part of that is it has some rational strategy behind it, in which they might need to save some days, quote unquote, to maybe have to reconvene later if new federal guidance from for the ARPA dollars, the federal COVID relief money, steers us in a different direction than what we have tried with the information that we have as a legislature, as far as putting forward what we can do with the money, what we think we can do with it, what we think we can't. But yes, Todd, we're on day 76 of the allotted 90, and what I'm hearing and what many others are hearing at this point is that based on the speed in which the remaining bills are getting through, that this could be done within the next week.
Great, that's good news. And so let's talk about this last week and some of the chamber priorities. What's our status as of today?
Yeah, so again, I was thrilled to be able to announce on this call last week that the chamber's remaining two of our main 4 priority bills this session had passed the legislature, and I just checked the status on those this morning, and they are both in the process of being signed by the speaker and the president of the respective chambers before heading to the governor's desk, of which we've had their support the administration's support along the way as well with these, so I don't anticipate any hiccups there. So we should see those last 2 bills signed next week. But yeah, Todd, I looked over our list of bills that we supported throughout the session, because I mean, before I go into that, we've been almost 100% successful with the bad bills, if you will, anti-business bills. And so I haven't even had to pull that list up lately, because it's just we were 100% on all those that we weighed in publicly on. But as far as the bills we've supported, of which there have been just over 50 or so that we've weighed in some form, all the way from just showing up at a hearing and saying this is a good bill, all the way up to our priority bills. And I would say there are about a dozen or so left that to a lesser extent on our priority list, but are still good pro-business bills, ranging from creating a task force on reviewing regulations that were suspended during the COVID pandemic and reviewing whether those regulations are necessary to bring back, all the way to a piece of legislation that we've supported in the past that was brought forth again on creating a tax incentive for job creation on employer payroll taxes. So there's a few things left, Todd, but honestly, I'm looking through what those things are and visiting with the sponsors of these bills as we go, and I'm getting a sense of confidence on pretty much all those that they're going to get through, barring some kind of unforeseen circumstance, and we certainly can't rule those out.
Great. So looking into next week and what you think might be the end of this legislative session, what do you expect to see next week that will matter to us? Or are we mostly into the kind of sorting out how the dollars are going to be spent and making sure the budget is balanced?
I think next week, most of our work, Todd, is going to, because we were able to plan ahead really nicely this session and get our policy priorities through the process now. We're really just going to be watching to make sure that nothing falls off the tracks, if you will, within the last week. And really that what this legislature is going to be considering in the next week, you may have seen, if you're paying attention to some of these major bills. Again, there's only one constitutional obligation of the legislature, and that's to pass a state budget. House Bill 2 is going to have its conference committee. And I talked about how those worked a little bit last week, but basically this is a combination of 3 legislators from the House and 3 legislators from the Senate to come up with some compromise amendments. And this is par for the course when it comes to end game on these major money bills, to just sort out and iron out any differences that still exist. So House Bill 2 is going to be heard in that conference committee next Tuesday, and then House Bill 632, a really big piece of legislation, of course, on how to allocate over $2 billion of federal COVID relief money assigned to Montana. That's going to have also a conference committee next Wednesday. And so if you line it all out like that, and again, I think it's going to be, the cake's going to be pretty much baked. It's a matter of having the hearing and just getting whatever amendments are necessary completed. But especially with 632, if they get that conference committee, agree on the amendments, pass it out, they could have second reading on Thursday, third reading on Friday, and that can all still line up to wrap up at the end of next week because of those bills. And this isn't to mention, of course, that the legislature is getting closer day by day here to set out a regulatory program for recreational marijuana. And this was another just major policy hurdle that that was a benchmark of how long this session was going to last towards the end, is how quickly can they come to an agreement there. House Bill 701 is going to be heard on second reading in the Senate today. And so that's moving a little bit closer. And yeah, those are some big ones. And I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the governor's tax relief bills that have been a priority for us as well, all the way from business equipment tax to top personal income tax relief. Those are still in the mix out there, and amendments have been put on all of those in different variations just based on the bill language to ensure that we can still get the ARPA dollars, the COVID relief money, and have the tax relief down the road. And most of those amendments have consisted of implementing those tax relief bills at a later date when there won't be any perceived conflict with receiving the federal dollars. So I'm seeing the amendments be put on those. Those are starting to get their second reading on the opposite chamber, and it looks like the major priority ones anyway are going to continue to move through, and Governor Gianforte will get his tax package for the most part completed.
Great. And while this session is likely to adjourn next week, there's going to be, I think you call it a little bit of a mini session that's going to start not too long after this session adjourns, as different committees get into looking about how they're going to allocate those federal dollars to specific projects. Right now it's broad. Individual committees will take a look at where it is for specific projects that they're going to allocate those dollars.
Yeah, Todd, the legislature, while I was in session here, was very wise to not start picking specific projects to put in that House Bill 632 COVID relief dollars allocation, because the politics of that just would have killed that bill. And so again, they created those interim commissions based on the buckets of funding for different categories, from infrastructure to healthcare to emergency services to the judiciary. I mean, and corrections. It's broadband, everything. And it won't necessarily, I mean, yeah, it won't technically be a session because they won't be in, but there is authority in this bill given to these interim commissions to start vetting projects. And as we've talked about on these calls in the past, it's never too early to start sharing with us what some of your ideas specifically are that might fit in one of those funding buckets, because some of these commissions have to meet and vet projects and make some suggestions as early as midsummer. So this is going to be no like elongated process. The guidance that came in from federal, I think, suggests that they have to make some decisions pretty quickly in a use it or lose it scenario. And so it'll be a different interim for everybody, including the Montana Chamber, and remaining vigilant as we always do. This is going to be one of those times where we're going to have to keep our eyes really close to fine print going forward.
It's not going to be a break as much as it's going to be a shifting of gears.
Right. No, great. Well,
great. Well, thanks, Bridger, and great update. exciting to hear some of our major priority bills are headed to the governor's desk for signature, and we expect that to happen. And a number of other bills that we've been supportive of are well along the process as well. So we're cautiously optimistic with what appears to be about a week left of the legislative session that we could have one of the best sessions that this organization has had in a long time.